It can often feel extremely disempowering and heartbreaking when we engage in childlike behaviors, when we abandon people, when we get abandoned, get defensive, sabotage situations, we criticize ourselves or somebody else. It's not just disempowering, but it also limits the levels of our intimacy. When we are operating from a very wounded place, in these moments of unconsciousness, we need to get into this compassionate mode, especially when we critique our own behaviors. Like when we shut down, or we lashed out, or we got defensive, where we lied, or we even ran away from a situation. I recall times in my relationships before embarking on this healing journey where my protection mechanism was lashing out, attacking, and most definitely criticizing, and most often complaining, not realizing that I could not reject those parts of myself because those were mechanisms that I used to protect myself. And in turn, it actually blocked me from getting any kind of deepened intimacy with any of my relationships. Not accepting those childlike behaviors means that you're not accepting a part of yourself. A part of yourself that used this protection mechanism to survive particular situations growing up and in past relationships. It's kind of like we want to put them out of sight, out of mind, dig those under, keep them in the subconscious. Don't put a spotlight on it until they get triggered or until we go drinking and we start to get crazy in our minds, and then they all pop up to the surface. I'm here to really tell you that once you decide to make the decision that enough is enough, when you get into those deeper levels of yourself, into those deeper levels of your consciousness and unconsciousness, the deeper you can get into relationships with another. When you decide that you are no longer going to be the supporting actor and take the lead role as an adult, you can then start to release those childlike behaviors, those temper tantrums, that dysfunctionality and toxicity and lashing out. So it's about being able to build up this courage and acknowledge that it served a purpose a very long time ago, but now it's time to allow you to enjoy deeper intimacy. But we also have to be able to learn and build new skills, because when you build new skills, those skills will serve a purpose so that when you do get into disagreements, and you will get triggered, you can then remain and tune into your body. Resist the urge to become defensive or take flight or fight, freeze, or even fawn and self-abandon and become someone else that you're not. When we realize that there is a different option available to us, a different behavior, we can tune in and say, okay, in these situations, typically I react or I run away or I freeze. But right now I'm going to increase my window of compassion. And I'm going to stay in those uncomfortable situations and engage those uncomfortable conversations. But be alert that the conflict will have an effect on you. The fear of abandonment, the fear of not being enough, not being prioritized. Our reactions is somebody else's wound, and their reactions can cause us to react. And so there's a fine dance here. Does that make sense? You see how there's delicate swing between awareness and alertness, self-compassion and allowance, and holding space for somebody else. It's really about taking different steps. It's about learning a different way to be, a new version of ourselves. We need to start to build self-trust, to have these deeper levels of conversations, not just with ourselves, with our partner. This journey requires us to be brave, to allow to get to these deeper levels of our humanness.